Yeah, perfect.
So my name is Jovita. So I'm a regional CTO for Microsoft. I'm based in Houston. You heard Fazal and Shannon talked about working with us. Yes, we work very closely with the city of Houston and other organizations and localities around the world. But I am proud of the relationship that we have with the city and the work that we've been doing. So I'm here today to briefly talk about some of the trends that we are seeing in the industry, the water industry in general. What Microsoft's point of view is, which, as you will see, aligns very directly with initiatives that are happening around the world. I'll briefly touch on digital water, which will align with some of the work that you saw Fazal talk about, and then some of our other solutions. As you know, Microsoft's mission is to empower every person and every organization on this planet to achieve more. And when it comes to water, what we plan to do is to ensure that there is access to enough clean water for everyone on the world. And we also are adopting the climate change slogan, which, as you know, is to manage the unavoidable so we avoid the unmanageable. That is the context that we have here. And a lot of us here are experts in water. Certainly, I'm not going to lecture most of you guys. I have looked at your backgrounds. I'm absolutely humbled to be among you guys. And I'm not going to read all of this to you. I'm sure we all are aware of the challenges that we are facing, right? So I'm going to flip through a few of these slides. The situation is dire. If we don't do anything, as you saw in one of the last slides by Fazal and Shannon, it's going to be a problem, right? So this is directly from the World Economic Forum website. Some of the consequences of the crisis, what is going to happen if we don't take action? You look at some of the risk in terms of the likelihood, in terms of the impact, and they break it down in all those categories, the 5 categories that you see on the right-hand side. Again, this is all directly from the World Economic Forum's website. We've seen extreme conditions around the world, but what is key here is, as you see at the bottom bullet point, is by 2050, about 45% of global GDP will be at risk due to water stress. So it's a big deal. It affects everyone, or should affect everyone. Now, the water industry is not unaware of this. We are quite aware of it. I've seen what other communities are doing, certainly what Houston Public Works is doing, right? They are aware of it, and I am extremely excited to see that Shannon, Fazal, and team are tackling this problem head on. They are not waiting. So that is really good to see that there is action. But we are aware of the situation, and what should we do now, right? There are a ton of initiatives happening around the world, and I'm certainly proud of the work that Dr. Sunil is doing with the National Science Foundation, where the US is not being left behind. You see that the UAE is they already have a strategy. So by 2036, they're going to achieve all these things on this slide. Because we're going to have this slide available, I'm not going to read this, but it's going to be part of the record for this workshop. Singapore already did theirs several years ago, and they are managing their water situation quite, I would say, seamlessly. And most of it, what I admire about Singapore's initiative was they leveraged existing infrastructure. They took advantage of capital expenditure. You know, they did not rip and replace, as some people always are afraid of. And when you look at this in context of what is commonly referred to as Industry 4.0 or the fourth industrial revolution, where does the water industry stand? What we have seen is that all other industries is being affected by robotics, artificial intelligence, IoT, blockchain, advanced sensors, mixed realities, shared reality, real-time access to data, right? Diversified supply chain. Where does the water industry stand with this? And that is what some of the work that we at Microsoft we've done to make sure that the water industry is not left behind all this smart infrastructure and digital initiatives that are happening around the world. And we see this transformation in the water industry as part of the transformation in what we call smart cities. So this presentation is the way we're going to look at this is how we've transformed from having a cloud that provides globally available unlimited compute resources, right, to fusing your physical and your compute world into what we call cyber physical systems. Some people like to call it IoT environments. And then now we start moving all of this into the edge, where we're going to have intelligence offloaded from the cloud down to the edge where the data is actually generated. But then you want to start infusing all of that also with a whole lot of AI capabilities. And our ultimate hope and aspiration is that we're going to provide what I call shared reality, or some people like to call digital twin capabilities in these infrastructures that we're going to have out there. Today, as you heard from Fazal and Shannon, there's just this disjointedness in all the data sources. You saw one of their slides, they had all those different data sources. So we look at, in the previous slide, in the animation that you saw, is that whole, call it roadmap, where you go from the left-hand side, I'm going to go back there all the way to the right-hand side, where you have cognitive advanced services infused into everything that we're doing with these infrastructures. As you can see here from a utility standpoint, we're talking here, today we're talking about water, but this is a trend that is common across energy, water, communication, where we're going to be confronted with 5G and how that will impact us. But on the right-hand side of this slide, you look at the different trends and the challenges that they introduce. Again, I will be selective here because I know that we are short on time. But if anyone has any question about any of these trends and the challenges and how we are addressing them, please feel free to shoot me an email. On the smart infrastructure services, as it relates to smart cities, we've talked of smart lighting, the smart water, which is pretty much the basis of today's discussion. There's also smart waste management, smart building, right? Smart parking, smart everything. And when we start looking at this in context of all these different smart infrastructure services, we start thinking, how do these things all tie together? Because when you live in a city where you, even in a rural area, not necessarily only a city, you're going to start thinking of your life holistically, and you want to think of waste management and water, lighting, and all those things. And that is why we see this in that through those lenses. And as our urban innovation initiative, part of that initiative, we start going back to the people who actually manufacture the hardware, right? Because these things actually exist in the physical world, and we start working with them together, whether it's at the sensor level to building these capabilities that you saw into their chipsets. We are doing that today with quite a good number of vendors. And the idea is that devices that are going to be coming out will have these types of capabilities. Some of you may be asking, what is Microsoft's role in this? Our goal is to democratize those technologies that you saw. The biggest challenge is that one of the biggest challenges that we know you guys as utility experts face is this whole black box idea, the way hardware vendors come in with their SCADA, ICSs and DCS devices, and they dump it on you guys, and it is hard to manage, right? It's a one-way street. It's very difficult to integrate with other hardware that are not from the same vendor, and you're stuck. Our approach is to democratize that process. We're using open source tools to make sure that you don't have an operating system that is homogeneous and it's very difficult to back out of. So today, where we are in 2020, but if you step back and look where we were last year, where we start looking at sensors, and then where we are going to, right? If you look on the right-hand side, we are actually moving to advanced sensors, devices that may have no batteries or they can generate their own energy using available resources. This is an example of how we work on a solution. In this case, it was E. coli. You know, this is somewhat related to water, because if you have a water that is affected by something like that, it could be a challenge. So how can you detect microorganisms in water, right? That is the essence of this work that Microsoft Research did with some of the water organizations out there. And I like one of the slides that Fazal showed with those 6 different initiatives. And what we are looking at here is 6 different areas of focus where we believe we could have impact. The first one is on situational awareness. You heard of predictive analytics and real-time detection of problems, but the question is, what if we can actually preempt issues before they happen? That is a key goal of our strategy. The next one is intelligent infrastructure. What does that mean? Again, it is about real-time climate proofing, net zero carbon initiatives to combating this problem. Risk management is a big deal. When you talk of stormwater, for example, we live here in the Gulf of Mexico, and we are challenged by hurricanes all the time. And then up here on the right-hand side, you have allocation management, right? How do you manage your assets in a smart way? What is the new type of supply chains we're going to have for all of this? And then water management simulation. How do you even know this is going to work? Having a simulation environment where you could model out if the short, mid, and long term and understand the implications of these technologies, that is a big, big advantage. And that is one of the things we hear a lot of you tell us you want to see. Infrastructure, from an infrastructure standpoint, of course, this is a dynamic conceptual architecture for what we call the intelligent systems of service for water, where if you start from the right-hand side, where you have the different personas, the city leaders, the workers, and the citizens, what is it that they want to see in their city, right? What you see here are those smart infrastructures that we talked about, or now infused and connected together to have a system of systems. In a more physical way, from a reference architecture standpoint, and we are not by any means suggesting that this is written on stone. This is a conceptual example of what is going to, the way we view these things, where on the left-hand side, you're going to have your physical systems, right? Whether it's a video camera in a plant, you're going to have your flow meters, quality probes, leaks, and all kinds of different sensors, whether it's odor or any other thing that you want to capture. And then you're going to bring that in some kind of a gateway. In our case, we call this the Azure IoT Gateway. And we have different other variables that we look into, whether it's weather data coming from the NWS, the National Weather Service, maps and terrain data, water assets, all different types of environment, pumps, filters, et cetera.
Jovita, can you wrap it up in 1 minute?
Sure. I think this is one of my last slides, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Great.
And then we're going to infuse all of that. We bring that into this ingestion hub and perform all kinds of analytics work. But the end goal is on the right-hand side, where value is derived over here with dashboards, all kinds of presentation, devices, whether it's on your Apple Watch, smartphone, and so on and so forth, all from a control center. So conceptually, that is really what we are working with Fazal's team to do. As you heard, the work is just starting. We have a lot to do, but we've done this across the world with different municipalities and private sector companies, and I'm excited to be part of this group here, and I'll be bringing some of those learnings, and I'll also be here to learn and take those back to Microsoft so we can be better. Thank you very much. And I look forward to participating in more discussions.
Great. Perfect, Jovita. Perfect timing and a lot of good information. Yeah, that's the whole point here is to a lot of things you presented, we can discuss during the breakout, and also